am not a madman. This is one of the most important videos on the channel. So, I was born and raised in Jamaica. I didn't come from the stablest family situation. Um, my mother, a struggling single mom who sacrificed much. And in terms of my high school credentials, I completed an international baccalaureate diploma program uh, at a Jamaican high school and received an international baccalaureate diploma in terms of my American standardized test scores, 1520 out of 1600 on the SAT, 740 evidence based reading and writing, 780 mathematics, SAT subject tests, perfect 800s on mathematics level 2 and physics, high school level standardized testing. Um, I completed my Bachelor of Science at the University of Oregon. As a freshman, I was working with Dr. Timothy J. Gardner and Dr. David T.C. Alcock. And so Tim Gardner used to work for Elon Musk at Neuralink as a sort of neuroengineer, neuroscientist, and physicist. Um, and I was working in his laboratory, and he had what was called sort of micron scale 3D printer with a femtosecond laser, a 6-axis hexapod with 6 degrees of freedom with micron precision movement, and a photoresist. And so basically, the femtosecond laser focuses on sections of the photoresist to print structures with micron precision. In particular, Tim Gardner was using this to fabricate electrodes for brain computer interfaces to do neural decoding of birdsong. And I actually successfully contributed an algorithm to the software setup for that laboratory, which was a simple nested for loop to do stitching of prints in a sort of two-dimensional array, um, and that actually worked. And I was quite proud of that because I was a freshman, surrounded by physics PhD students and researchers and postdoctoral researchers, and then of course Tim Gardner is a seasoned PhD holding research scientist and worked for Elon at Neuralink. Um, and then David Alcock earned his physics PhD at Oxford, and he was running the organized trap-down quantum computing laboratory at the University of Oregon. And I was at the time a freshman doing like a basic thing with a BeagleBone microcontroller and getting it to work with an Adafruit BM8280 environmental sensor and using Python to get that working. And when I was running back and forth between those two laboratories, doing sort of technical tasks with both of those professors, I had the idea that we should 3D print the ion traps. And so, what this means is that we should use the micron scale 3D printer in Dr. Gardner's lab to fabricate ion traps for the organized trapped ion quantum computing laboratory. And so, given my suggestion, this actually got started in March of 2020. Um, and it took just over 2 years for the ion traps to be 3D printed and a publication to be finalized titled Geometries and Fabrication Methods for 3D Printing Ion Traps. And if you scroll down to the acknowledgement section of that paper, which is publicly viewable on ArXiv, you see we would like to acknowledge Aaron Casserly, who suggested this collaboration. And so I was the visionary freshman kid in over my head, surrounding myself with people way smarter than me who actually had the moment of visionary genius to suggest a high-level quantum computing collaboration that actually became manifest. Um, and so that is objectively true and verifiably true. Um, and so on. Other things I did is that, you know, throughout completing my Bachelor of Science in Mathematics and double minor in Physics and Computer Science, I held a whole host of jobs to support myself financially. I was a campus manager with Fresh Prince, and I sold like over 20 grand in custom apparel, working with Greek Life and other student orgs. I sold shaving kits with Dollar Shave Club. I tutored students holding office hours in Data Science 102. I tutored student athletes in math, physics, and comp sci. I even assisted with my family's Snopology robotics franchise, in which I led robotics camps, influencing the lives of children and transferring my technical knowledge to these kids in a fun, Lego Technic based robotics summer camp setting, and led multiple camps. And then further did work with Dr. Gardner, Dr. Alcock, and Dr. McMorran. at the University of Oregon as like research physicist positions. And so the sort of jobs I worked throughout my undergraduate career have been sales and business, education and tutoring, and then a research scientist positions to support myself and to complete my financially support myself throughout my completing my Bachelor of Science. And so I hold a Bachelor of Science in mathematics, and I completed a double minor in physics and comp sci, and that I did all of this with a 3.70 out of 4.0 GPA. And so in the University of Oregon system, they add they add 0.34 plus grade, and they deduct a 0.34 minus grade. And so an A is a 4.0, then an A minus is 3.7. And so given all that complex technical work, I finished with a 3.7 out of 4. And other than that, at some point, it must have been the summer of 2020, I was with my parents staying at their rural home during the period of remote instruction due to COVID, doing summer courses, and I indicated interest in Starlink. And at some point, I paid $99 for a Starlink pre-order, or to complete my Starlink pre-order. And then in August of 2022, I received an email from the Starlink division of SpaceX that the Starlink was ready to be shipped, and at which point I paid an additional $500. And so I paid for my parents or my family's Starlink device, and I paid $600 given of my own money, given all the jobs I worked throughout my undergraduate career. Just as an epic thing, because I wanted to pay for the Starlink, because it felt like I was, connected with SpaceX, and $99 for the pre-order, $500 to complete it complete the payment once it was ready to be shipped in August of 2022. And so that is enhancing the work from home ability of my parents' rural home, and it's really epic, sleek, aesthetic, and minimalistic technology, in which they've done a brilliant thing of even given the very thin or small support stick, they've engineered in 2 degrees of freedom in the X and Z axis for it to basically find the optimal view angle in like a circular search space. Given the positioning of the satellites in the constellation, and so at some point I also started using aspiration as my clean banking alternative, and so these guys do not invest in oil. It's a secure platform in that it's FDIC insured up to over $2 million, and they have a plant your change function which deducts less than a single American dollar to plant 1 or 2 trees at a time. And so you build up a contribution of sequestering trees to help with climate. And so my current tree count with aspiration is 161. And so my 161 sequestering trees are sequestering sufficient CO2 to nullify the emissions of approximately 16 or so gasoline passenger cars, and offsetting these emissions to help with climate preservation. And so I'd recommend that you check out Aspiration if you've never heard of it. It is a secure, clean banking platform that I'm a huge fan of. And so, what are some of the other things I did in my time at University of Oregon? I've been sort of somewhat of a visionary boss. Other than suggesting the high-level quantum computing collaboration, I founded Quantastic Physics, a quantum computing and quantum physics club that hosted graduate student talks and faculty talks in quantum science, and actually blew up, to a good amount of members. And it became an officially registered club. And then at some point, I founded the Google Developer Student Club at the University of Oregon, and designed the logo for it and so on. And this was a software developer or software engineering related club affiliated with Google. And maybe blew up to around 30 or so, just over 30 members. Decent, and founded that one too. And so I completed my Bachelor of Science in around March of 2023, which is winter quarter at the University of Oregon. That's my last quarter. And so some of the stuff I did, I proved calculus from first principles, going all the way from limits to derivatives to integrals to Taylor series and Maclaurin series, proving all that from first principles. I did discrete mathematics and combinatorics and graph theory relevant mathematics. I did multivariable calculus theorems and multivariable calculus, Green's theorem, Stokes' theorem, linear algebra, Gauss elimination, this, that, and the other, eigenvectors and eigenvalues, Fourier analysis, using Fourier techniques to solve two-dimensional wave equation problems and so on, two-dimensional wave equation, two-dimensional heat equation, general differential equation techniques with differential equation solving with Fourier techniques, complex analysis, the complex plane, contour integrals, evaluating an integral which is not tractable with conventional integration techniques, with a complex analysis approach with use of theorems from complex analysis, like contour integral theorems involving evaluating, for example, an integral involving some singularity in the complex plane, and that was like most of my math major. And then I completed a computer science minor in which I did algorithmic problem solving in Python and C, data structures, algorithms, introduction to artificial intelligence, and developed like one of my final research project or problems I solved in the computer science minor was developing a reinforcement learning agent that plays Pac-Man, and so does maybe 10 episodes of or 50 episodes of training, and then wins most of the games as a reinforcement learning Pac-Man AI agent, and a whole lot of other stuff in that computer science minor. And then in my physics minor, I did, calculus-based physics, it's sort of Newtonian mechanics, moment of inertia calculations, just center of mass calculations and integrals, buoyancy, electricity and magnetism, basic calculus involving like double integrals to what is an expression of the electric field some distance away from the center of a charged disk, freshman level calculus based E&M, and then into electrodynamics, Maxwell's equations, what is the magnetic flux through some three-dimensional object, doing surface integrals to evaluate that, using multivariable calculus techniques like the curl of a vector field, the divergence of a vector field, Maxwell's equations, problem solving, so on and so forth, electromagnetic induction. Electrodynamics is the branch of physics just similar to electricity and magnetism, but involving more formidable and multivariable calculus tools to solve problems. And then classical mechanics, and so Lagrangian things. The Lagrangian is the kinetic energy minus the potential energy, and then you can take partial derivatives of your Lagrangian to derive an equation of motion, so on and so forth. Quantum mechanics in one dimension, Heisenberg uncertainty, expectation value calculations. The expectation value of position, for example, is the complex conjugate of the complex valued wave function multiplied by the position observable, which is just the variable x in one dimension, and then the standard quantum mechanical wave function. So complex conjugate wave function multiplied by the operator for your observable multiplied by the wave function, and you can evaluate that integral to find the expectation value of that observable in one dimension, and then so on and so forth, going into three-dimensional quantum mechanics. The Schrodinger equation in 3 dimensions, introduction of linear algebra notation, bra and Ket notation, operator matrices, and then problems in topics in quantum mechanics going into like solving partial and ordinary differential equations with use of complex arithmetic and so on and so forth to solve quantum mechanics problems. And then going into laboratory research in a quantum computing lab, doing calculations in terms of mode matching, with in terms of optics, like in Jupyter notebooks, doing mode matching calculations, uh, matching the mode of a reference cavity to the mode of a laser, and realizing that on the optics table, designing a Fabry Pro interferometer, and designing a zero CTE Fabry Pro cavity, doing CAD design and so on and so forth, doing pound river hole locking, and so this is a laser frequency stabilization technique involving a whole lot of other electronic components, and you want to basically you can view the properties of the laser beam, and if you've done PDH locking perfectly, you can see certain properties of your laser beam and determine the sort of the accuracy of the lock that you've done in terms of the laser frequency and its uncertainty, because you want a very low uncertainty to drive transitions on quantum bits in a quantum computer in the trapped quantum computing paradigm. And then I also did an electronics course involving building circuits with a whole lot of circuit components and using an oscilloscope to view resonances in a resonator circuit, and a whole lot of other stuff, like with a proto board, just working and building circuits using a multimeter to measure quantities of different circuits I built, this, that, and the other. And that was my physics. And in relation to all of this, I became a Ronald E. McNair Scholar, which is a prestigious group of scholars in the United States who come from underrepresented groups, and so I'm also, I appear to be a black man, and so I'm an underrepresented minority and a Jamaican immigrant, actually. And so I became a Ronald E. McNair Scholar, and in relation to that, I did a research project between my junior and senior year of undergrad, working with the Portland State Aerospace Society on the problem which is called multidisciplinary design optimization. And so I was working with that aerospace organization and did theoretical optimization of the fourth iteration of their student-built rocket. And so I was using mathematical optimization algorithms, in computer science and software engineering principles in terms of Python programming, and then physics and trajectory simulation to optimize a rocket. And I converged on the optimal design vector, and I wrote a 50-page paper, which is now publicly viewable on the OURJ website. And so if you go to the OURJ website and you go to the issues section, you'll see volume 21, number 3, and I'm the Aaron Casserly, who is the author of that design optimization paper and rocket science paper, which is my first publication as an independent scientist, optimizing a fucking student-built rocket. It's 50 pages long in standard Microsoft Word or PDF, but that publication has 2 columns, and so it is not quite as long in the official publication, but it is 50 pages in terms of a standard single column PDF. And some other things. I ended up also, because of my fantastic undergraduate career and all the epic stuff I've done, I've got into the graduate school at Northwestern University for a Master of Science in Electrical Engineering, and I'm taking a gap year, and so they're holding my space for entry in the fall of 2024 to start that Master of Science in Electrical Engineering at Northwestern Grad School, which is among the world's most prestigious technical graduate programs. So, long story short, I'm not a madman. And some other thing I'm doing this coachable software engineering training. It's like an 8-week training. I've just completed basically 6 of 8 weeks, and on the week 6 quiz, I scored like a 97 on the multiple choice and a perfect 100 on the coding section, for a combined final score of 99. The average score was like 87, and so I'm among pretty smart software developers. I'm among the creme de la creme in terms of elegance of code and an understanding of the software concepts, because this is a training geared to working a six-figure software job, and so I'm quite competent in terms of algorithms and mathematics, and software engineering as well, definitely. So on and so forth, so on and so forth. Now, another thing about me is that I'm theologically correct, and so the reason why I use aspiration to offset vehicular emissions via planting, sequestering trees is because I understand the local prosperity problem and the God delusion problem. And so basically, you have locally prosperous bubbles. And for example, the Christian United States, it has an oil-powered lifestyle, and all the emissions over time is putting carbon into the atmosphere, and basically causing the greenhouse effect, which is such that the radiation that would normally escape to space is reflected back down towards the Earth. This actually enhances the probability or increases the probability of wildfires, floods, and heat waves. All three of these things kill people. And so a recent wildfire in Maui, Hawaii, killed 97 people, and a recent heat wave in India killed some other amount of people. And these things are becoming more probable or more frequent because of the compounding of human effect on the planet and human emissions as a negative externality. And so my current aspiration tree count of 161 sequestering trees, these are sequestering sufficient CO2 to nullify the emissions of around 16 or so gasoline passenger cars. And so I've already nullified or removed the emissions of 16 gasoline passenger cars in the effort to assist with the climate scene, and so on and so forth. I am not a Christian because I understand this, and I understand that this is a world in which there are locally prosperous bubbles in which folks have a God delusion related to their locally prosperous life. But there's no God saying that 97 people should die in a climate change related wildfire in Hawaii, and such people should die in India in a heat wave, which is also climate change related. And these things are happening in areas external to the folks enjoying their locally prosperous Christian life, driving around their gasoline cars, slowly contributing to emissions and increasing the probability of such events occurring elsewhere. And so this is the larger truth of this whole place, which is a dark truth. And so, this being said, I still understand and value the principles of Christianity and the commandments of Christ, such as love thyself as thy neighbor, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not bear false witness, so on and so forth. These are excellent sort of elements of a good moral civilization in which there are agreements for mutual prosperity and some sort of objective standard of human moral behavior, such that things do not go haywire and become anarchist or some reversion to a society experiencing anarchy, and so on and so forth. And so, this being said, I'm not sure that there is anything else I can say. I'm also in the military and in the U.S. Navy, and so the U.S. Navy thinks highly of me and my credentials, and assigned me a job, and so they think I'm quite clever. I'm the Deus Ex Machina. Subscribe to the channel, guys.